7. I'm in Tampico, Mexico, and once again I'm working props for John Huston. This time for Treasure of the Sierra Madre. And one day, John calls me into his hotel room. "Marty, it looks like the mayor has ordered us to shut down production." I said, "Why, John?" He said, "Because someone," he said, shooting a side eye at our production manager, "forgot to bribe the local newspaper editor who just printed an editorial slamming us for making a film that is disrespectful to the Mexican people." Now, the good news is, if I can get in to see the mayor, I can probably smooth this whole thing over. The bad news is that his secretary, Rosalina, has been blocking us at every turn. So we're screwed. "Not necessarily," he said. "You remember that mousy-looking girl who was on set yesterday? That was Rosalina, and it seems that she's taken a bit of a shine to you." Well, I knew where John was going with this, and I wanted to jump out of the car before we arrived. "Now, John, I'm a married man." "Oh, for Christ's sakes, Marty, I'm not asking you to bang her. I just want you to take her out for some drinks, at most dinner. Look, that woman's the only thing standing between us and Jack Warner having all our asses in a sling. We've got to work this angle." Well, of course, he was right, so I said yes, and he gave me 3,000 pesos out of the petty cash. As I left, I said, "Well, it should be fine. It's not like she's suddenly going to rip my clothes off." And John said, "Well, she was raised a strict Catholic, so I wouldn't rule that out." Looking at my face, he suddenly added, "Don't worry. It's not cheating if you don't make the first move." That was the sort of airtight logic that guided John Huston through 5 marriages. So that night, I take Rosalina out for dinner, and all she wants to do is talk about my time in Hollywood. So I tell her some of the tamer stories. Believe me, you do not want to tell a woman who was raised in the Catholic Church about the 6 months Betty Davis used your butthole as a putting range. She pours me a glass of tequila. The good stuff, not that rock gut they sell at the airports and the duty-free shops. She then stands in front of me and starts to pose, and I'm thinking to myself, "Oh Lordy, she's about to do a striptease," and I start thinking of my elderly Aunt Sarah with the gamey leg. But then she starts singing "Pour un Amor" a cappella. And it is the most beautiful thing I have ever heard in my entire life. And when she finishes, I applaud. And she says to me, "Thank you, Mr. Lydecker. I hope this means that you'll be able to find something for me in your film." And that's when I realized that this was something a little more awkward than a seduction. It was an audition. Well, I had to break the news to her that A, I was not responsible for casting, and that B, there were no female parts in the film. Well, she started crying, and I started having visions of Jack Warner attacking my nethers with a pitchfork. So I said, "I have a friend who works as a talent scout for Universal, and I might be able to get you in for a screen test." And she smiled, perked up, and I said, "But you'll have to do me a favor first." Well, she looked at me and said, "Fine, lie back and unzip your fly." And I said, "No, not that!" I explained the situation about the newspaper and the mayor, and she agreed to get John his meeting. "And I don't have to suck on you?" I said, "Not at all. I have a wife who handles that, thank you very much." "Funny," she said. "I always heard that American women did not like to suck on their men." And I said, "Well, I got lucky. I married a bohemian." Well, long story short, John got his meeting, and within 20 minutes we were back in business. I called my friend Ted at Universal, and he set up the screen test. And before you knew it, she had scored a 5-year contract at Universal, which sadly didn't come to much. Her biggest role was fifth billing in an Abbott and Costello picture. However, she wound up marrying Ted, and in 1955 they opened a bistro in Baja, California called Por un Amor. Beverly and I would eat there every anniversary, and let me tell you, the lobster was spectacular.